Welcome to LATAMPaper August 1st, 26 edition. As we expected, uncertainty increased, logistics complexity augmented. El Niño effect probability is 91%. Inflation is going up. Not great news, although our industry is resilient and will find a way to improve.
Global economy. The year closes under real strain, with the Middle East energy shock still the dominant variable. The World Bank has cut 2026 global growth to 2.5%, while EY's baseline sees the conflict trimming roughly 0.6% off growth and pushing inflation toward 4.7% by Q4, a stagflationary mix that hits fuel-importing economies hardest. Demand stays firmly K-shaped. Affluent consumers, AI-fueled capital investment, and elevated asset valuations continue to support growth, though these dynamics remain vulnerable to renewed inflation pressures tied to the Middle East conflict, tariffs, and a gradual income squeeze. While the euro area softens as the conflict weighs on real income growth, consumer and business sentiment, and external demand, China moderates to around 4.5% with construction and real estate still declining, and India, the fastest-growing major economy, is now seeing higher energy prices and tighter financial conditions begin to weigh on household purchasing power and business sentiment. Sentiment has deteriorated sharply. Nearly two-thirds of executives said global conditions worsened over the past 6 months. Latin America. The region closes the year with muted momentum, with LATAM growth revised down to 2.2% for 2026 on still weak domestic demand and softer global growth, and softer private consumption and exports relative to 2025. Consumption is the soft spot heading into Q4. Real wages are barely moving, credit stays expensive under high real rates, and the World Cup tailwind has fully faded spending remains K-shaped, with upper-income households carrying demand, while middle and lower-income segments stay squeezed. Country divergence is stark. Brazil and Peru are gaining momentum while Mexico and Chile slow, with 5 risks set to squeeze corporate margins through year-end. And the energy shock is now cleanly splitting the region. Energy exporters benefit, while importers in Central America and Chile face weaker consumption, higher subsidy bills, and tighter monetary space. On exports, Q4 is where the agri-food calendar works in our favor. Fruits, vegetables, and flowers enter their strongest stretch. Peruvian and Chilean fruit ship into Northern Hemisphere off-season demand. Mexican avocados, berries, and tomatoes hit peak U.S. season, and Colombian and Ecuadorian flowers ramp hard into the year-end holiday window, all generating solid hard currency inflows. Protein stays resilient, with Brazilian beef, poultry, and pork holding Asian volumes, and now benefiting structurally from the entry into force of the European Union-Mercosur agreement, which has strengthened market access and reduced trade-related uncertainty for exports. Net read. Exporters plugged into the Q4 agri-export cycle with diversified hard currency buyers finish the year strong. Domestically focused consumer businesses and energy-importing economies face the tougher close. With USMCA renegotiation noise and geopolitics, the main downside risks into 2027.
In containerboard, since October of last year, we've been flagging that people needed to take precautions on supply. Pulling 3.5 million tons out of the system was always going to have consequences. Demand is still weak, and yet the shortage is being felt. Kraftliner more so than white top or semichem. And the real problem is, there's no solution in sight over the medium term. If global demand picks up, this gets a lot more acute. We're seeing a lot of corrugators turning to hybrid papers as an alternative to cover their needs. Markets like Mexico and Central America, which didn't suffer much shortage during COVID, are going to have a serious problem this time around. The U.S. mills simply don't have the volume left to support them anymore. I see plenty of complications ahead in securing volumes, and not just because of the paper shortage. The logistics chain is getting tighter too. On recycled papers, there's generally more supply out there, but the substitution away from virgin grades could end up squeezing that side as well, even if the impact is smaller. The Niño effect will be a wild card, with 91% of probability of a strong Niño think could turn sideways. At the moment, we are seeing impacts on agro crops, Panama Canal started to decrease normal water levels. In theory, November-December would be the worst part. Pulp. The world has gotten far more volatile. Wildfires, mill closures, European strikes, typhoons hitting chip supply, U.S. tariffs on Brazilian products, and the Middle East war driving fuel and logistics costs. Yet demand keeps growing, with BHKP up around plus 2% in 2026, driven by China and tissue. The catch is that market BHKP only grows plus 1%, because China keeps integrating. Their integrated capacity is compounding at double digits, while their market purchases go flat. And roughly 35% of Chinese capacity is genuinely hard to read, given opaque operating rates, integrated mills selling surplus, and constant feedstock and grade switching. They now hold the world's largest plantation base, and the only real gap versus Brazil is productivity, one they're spending heavily to close. With the delivered cost curve to China moving lower toward 2030, cost leadership becomes decisive. For LATAM, the point is uncomfortable but fair. Our edge was built on forest productivity, modern mills, and logistics. But Brazilian eucalyptus yields are still well below their 2010 peak, and new mills, while closer to the forest, are increasingly farther from the export ports. Traditional market assumptions may no longer give us the full picture. Regaining forest productivity and efficient logistics is what keeps the region competitive.
Thank you for watching. See you soon.